at your own pace, at your own time, just to ease into this moment, to calm the nerves. Well, my nerves, definitely. I'm experiencing nerves. And really, I'm going to invite you to set an intention for yourself for the next 2 hours. If there's one thing that you can give, and if there's one thing that you can take away from this next session, what will that be? And just anchor it with your breath. So continue to breathe nice and slowly and deeply, and see your breath as that signature, you know, to anchor your intention. Then we can slowly bring our attention back into the space. You can open up your eyes, and yes, let's get right into it.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's like we've said before, it's important to check in, and in a very stressful time. I mean, a lot of people look at breathing and they go, oh, what is this hogmanog stuff? But it helps us calm. It's actually in most religions. It's now become common practice in the workplace, and it really does set the tone. So just before you did that, my voice was going at twice the speed it's going now. I think it's a good indication of how much it can calm oneself.
And it's needed. I think what it's really needed, especially during such times where we need clarity, you know, where we need to focus, and also where we need to exercise and practice some compassion. You know, we are all in this together. And yeah.
Sipho, thanks for that. I also felt a big shift, and it just shows how 1 or 2 minutes can shift us from negativity to positivity.
Okay. So anybody who would like to test your presentation, you're more than welcome to. I've stopped sharing what I'm going to be starting off with.
Can I just see if I can share? Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we can.
Presentation. Okay, that's fine.
Can I just double check? Every one of our panelists here today are actually entrepreneurs as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, yes.
So that's quite exciting. So we are speaking to small business owners, but it's business owners speaking to others. So you're really saying, you know, we're eating our own dog food. You guys know what you're talking about. You're experiencing it yourself. You know how to deal with it. So it's not some big corporate giving advice saying this is how it should be, or a very like spatial perspective. It's saying, I'm living it. This is what I know you need.
That's exactly it. It's sharing what we are going through right now, the troubles, the difficulties, but also the positivity that can come out of it. So we're all in the midst of it.
Yeah, and you know what I'd be really excited to do is to also hear stories from other businesses. And I hope that you can also appeal to other businesses to please share the stories with the PBF and through this chat box or through our email, helpdesk@pbf.org.za, because I think good stories are hard to come by in these days. News in general is hard to come by in these days. And if we can share...
is going to open as well, Sash, today.
Oh, really? Okay. Tell us about the Facebook group.
So I'll send the link when I send the letter to everybody after the webinar, but it's all set up and it will be launching. So it's a safe place for everyone that's part of this to share their own stories, their trials, tribulations, and successes.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then I hope, and if there's any expert advice needed, certainly the PBF from Asiders, we have collated a group of all the various different aids from both government and private organizations. If people want access to that information, we're happy to share that. How to do an application form. Sometimes people, for example, the CEDAR application form, many have complained through our help desk that it's really difficult to navigate, and they give up halfway through before even trying. And I think the point of today is don't give up. We're here to help you, and we're in this together.
Thank you.
Sipho, just in which fields are our experts today?
I'm sure. Okay. So we've got Bongani, who comes from obviously the legal background, the legal side of things. Rufilwe, HR, Carmen, who is a doctor. And then we've got Nwabisa, who is a mindfulness coach and also an entrepreneur.
Wow.
But I would obviously welcome them to elaborate a bit more on one simple introduction.
Thank you. And Trish, obviously, is also a business owner.
Yes. Reinventing the business as we speak.
So, I call you a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly, serial entrepreneur. I need to stop one day and relax. No, but it's going to be great to be able to share what I can, and also to learn from other people, because it's very much trial and tribulation as to what's working and what's not. But my experience is that what I've done so far in the last couple of months has been a huge shift, but a great success. And I'm so excited about where we're heading off to.
What do you mean what you've done in a couple of months?
So we've gone from brick and mortar to online. We literally have not had a brick and mortar business for 2 months now. Really? And we've managed to reinvent ourselves so that we actually are getting an income in, and the business is growing daily online. But literally it's been opening a brand new online business, which is exciting. I feel like I've been to the University of Zoom. And I don't have my degree.
Be at the university called Zoom.
So my entire business is now online, and it's amazing when you open your mind what possibilities there are. And when I think of some businesses and business owners that I've spoken to, there are so many gaps that people can actually get into now. It's a perfect opportunity. It's just to find that gap. That's the problem, and we need to be open.
Yeah, you have to be open. I mean, I was just amazed. I'm doing a course at the moment, and during the course, there was this gentleman called, he's a digital facilitator. So it's like an MC but also went to the University of Zoom as such, but he digitally facilitates events, meetings. And actually, the way he pulled it together was so important. I guess it's very similar to what Sipho was doing for us today in the facilitation role, but also being able to do the presentations. Can you just imagine the amount of new careers that are coming up? I mean, that's something that really didn't exist before.
And I think, Sasha, from a mindfulness point of view, it's also, it's been a daunting experience. And I think what is important is for people to understand that it will come with resistance initially, and just coming back to what Trish was saying about converting her business into online and digital. We also did exactly the same thing with our yoga studio, but initially when all of this was happening, our initial response was like, hell no, So you have your resistance first, and anxiety of this unknown. And then you must just do it, just go with it. And I mean, as you're referring to the University of Zoom, it is my first time actually preparing something like this. And I've learned a lot from it. And as I've been preparing it, my daughter I've been saying that I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. And then she says to me, oh, trust me, when you're done, you're going to want to do it all over again. And she's right. Now that we're here, and I'm like, wow, actually, it wasn't that bad. So all change is difficult at the beginning. It's messy, it's ugly. But once you get into it, you get to learn a lot. And that's the beauty of being mindful of the process.
True. While we were preparing for this event, I remember us having a conversation about one of the positives, that come out of COVID-19. And, you know, when we're doing bad in business, in personal life, we tend to try and like, oh, I'm fine. How are you today? I'm fine. How is your business? It's okay. It's good. It's fine. We know, pushing along, you know, these sorts of phrases. But because of COVID-19, we know that everyone is struggling. And so we've become more honest. We can say, actually, it's terrible. I need to find a new way of doing business. And by that alone, that honesty allows us to be open to accept and see new ways.
And it lightens our load. You know, if we're carrying the burden of shame and a failing business and we can't share it, it's a very heavy burden to carry. But to actually now be open about it, as so many people are, it lightens their load, which enables them to start feeling freer to think out of the box.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, that there's a lot of careers that will come up out of it. And it's important for businesses to actually think out of the box. And in doing that, there's new skills and competencies that may be required. So as a business owner, you may have maybe 5 or 6 people that you are in employment currently. How can you equip them and actually develop them to gain those skills to be able to put back into the business for you to continue? So part of the business continuity strategy needs to be developing the people that you have currently and not actually looking at options of letting them go, but looking at options to empower them for them to actually feed into your business and in the new way that you are doing business going forward. So I think it's very important to look at it holistically as well, because it's not just you as the business owner, as the people around you, that you also need to maintain and keep support of. Yeah.
I was in a very interesting conversations yesterday, and I think out of them, three people spoke about how it's okay not to be okay. You know, so again, it's getting to that point of just realizing that we are here and it's okay not to be okay. And then the other conversation I was in, which was also quite relevant, I mean, all of the issues that we are facing now, in reality, these things have been there, you know? It's just that COVID-19 has just really heightened them. And I mean, digitization, even the lingo, we must get used to it, you know, automation, you know, the online platforms, all of these things were there, they were coming, you know, but now with this current crisis, it's just fast tracked and it's making us get to a point where we need to act now rather than, you know, wait and just testing waters. Now we're forced to get to that point. And I see we've got a minute to go till 10 o'clock, and I'm hoping Nwabisa is going to be able to join us soon, and I'm going to start flighting our presentation to be able to start at some point.
So I can speak on the side of this, right? Of this presentation. Is that fine?
Yes. Yes, Sasha.
Thank you. So I think we maybe just give it a few minutes.
Okay. Let's look at.
That's what quite a few. We have now 46 participants. It sometimes takes people a little while to get in, and then we'll start accordingly. We've been on for a little while, but for those of you who've just joined, we're starting this masterclass with a check-in. Trish, I don't know if you want to just give another quick example of a way to check in so that you can be truly present and you can really absorb what we're going to share with you today.
Yes, sure. So I think we should actually check in with each other, because the more we understand how each other feel, the better we can relate. So if we could each maybe do a quick check-in ourselves. And how are you feeling today, Sash?
Yeah, I must say I am a little bit nervous for the PBF and for myself. I think this is the second time we're doing this, and it doesn't seem to be easing quite yet, but I seem to be gaining knowledge. Yeah, but I'm excited. My objective, or the PBF's objective as well, as the convener of the PBF, is really to bring hope and give practical advice. And I'm so grateful that when we reached out to other businesses to be part of this, that so many have come forward. And thank you to our business experts and panelists here today that are making this a reality. And thank you to Life Retreat.
Thank you. Okay, I'll do a quick check-in and then we can just go around quickly and everyone can comment as to how they're feeling and where they are today. I also feel nervous. It feels real that it's actually happening now. I actually feel quite emotional because I feel like South Africa is in such a bad way. People are battling, and if we can help some businesses and advise and help each other and support each other through this time, we can survive. But some businesses may not, and it makes me feel sad. So I'd like as many people to reach out to other people and try and help them. It's time for us to stick together and really make a go of it. So I feel very emotional about it, actually. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sipokazi Kwakweni, and I'm used to the culture of checking in, and where I come from, we check in using 4 areas, which is what we call pies. So physically, I am feeling a bit cold this morning. There's a bit of a chill in Cape Town, but I'm good. Intellectually, I'm ready for the day. We've been working behind the scenes preparing for today, so I am a bit nervous, but I'm also quite happy that we are here and I'm ready for it. Emotionally, I've got a bit of mixed emotions. I'm anxious, I'm nervous, but I'm happy that there is such a platform where we can connect and where we can be vulnerable and where it's okay not to be okay. But then at the same time, we are also looking at solutions and the way forward and moving forward. So that really makes me happy. And spiritually, I am forever grateful. And with that, I check in. Thank you, Trish.
Are you going next, Rufilwe?
Yes, I'll go next. Morning, everyone. My name is Rufilwe. I'm just as nervous as everybody else in the panel. Today was it was a daunting exercise where I was like, am I going to be able to do this? But we're here now, and hoping that it will be something that will be valuable and something that a lot of us will learn from and take away from, because like we say, we're all in the same boat. We all don't know. This current status of affairs is really different, and it's just something that nobody is well acquainted with. So it's something that is really new to everybody, and change is generally, as human beings, we are resistant to change because it's fear of the unknown. It's fear of a lot of things that are coming on. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainties about things, but I'm just grateful to have this platform and the opportunity for all of us to learn as panelists. As much as we're going to be giving a lot of information, but we'll be gaining information as well from the rest of the panelists. So I'm actually quite grateful for the opportunity as well. Thank you.
Carmen, would you like
Okay,
to
so I'll go next.
I'm going in order of my screen here.
We're on the same page. Hi, everyone. I'm Carmen. And I love Mel Robbins. She teaches about how nervousness and excitement feel very similar in our bodies, right? So when we're nervous, we feel like tense and we feel like we're sweating a little. Maybe our heart is beating a little bit fast, maybe a bit of dry mouth, but we feel exactly the same when we're excited. So today I'm channeling excitement as opposed to nervousness. But I love this opportunity that we get to be able to speak with each other. And I truly am excited to hear from the other panelists. I think we're going to learn a lot. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Carmen. Bongani, you next on our screen.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Bongani. I am excited to be here today. it feels like a venting session, because for the first time I can be with people that are on the same boat as me, fellow entrepreneurs, just sharing ideas, sharing how we're coping, how we're surviving, and looking forward to how we can navigate the space post COVID-19. And so I don't think it's all gloom and doom. I think I'm willing to take from this experience, something positive to look forward to. So I'm excited to learn from fellow panelists, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Nobisa. How are you today? Can you hear me? Nobisa, can you hear me? No. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you today?
I'm great.
Good. Would you like to check in?
And how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you feeling today, Nobisa?
To share our, how all of us, excuse me.
Oh, breaking up.
Yeah, I think that's the reality of the internet sometimes that we're all facing. And Nobisa, we'll wait for you for a second, but I think maybe because now it's nearly 10:10, do you mind if we start, Sipho? Is that fine? Great. Welcome everybody to the PBF's first Business Masterclass, Evolving Your Business Perspective During and Beyond COVID-19. Now, I have this speech in front of me that I planned, but I'm not going to follow it completely. I've decided to speak from the heart instead. You'll notice that I have an extremely expressive face. This is from all the years of drama training. And then in the end, when I watch myself on the screen, I think, gosh, it's a bit too expressive. But I hope that that expression will help the participants today to realize how important and real it is to all of us. This masterclass is obviously timeless, but it's necessary. And the ANC's Progressive Business Forum and myself as the convener are very proud to be able to share this platform today. There's a time of significant challenge for many South Africans and actually all of us. And as SMMEs, you play undoubtedly a massive role to the economy. Your ability to generate income, training, and stimulate jobs are really without parallel. And yet now we face this hiccup. Well, actually, it's a lot more than a hiccup. And President Ramaphosa spoke about our country's encounter with COVID-19 as thrusting our economy into uncharted territory. So we simultaneously feel faced with two challenges. The one is, how do we preserve lives, which Dr. Carmen will be dealing with, as well as how do we ensure our economy can rally, grow, support all South Africans. So we call this the new normal, and I'm sure all of us are a little bit sick of hearing this new normal. What does it really mean? But in thinking about this new normal, I'm reminded and penned by words of an author of a book called Mi Vida, a story of faith, hope, and love. Jose Harris, who wrote in 2010, surround yourself with people who make you laugh. Forget the bad. Focus on the good. Love the people who treat you right. Pray for the ones who do not. Life is too short to be anything but happy. Falling down is part of life. Getting back up, now that's the living. So as I say that, I want us to also stop and to think about where we as South Africans have come from. Let's not forget. It's been the hallmark of the ANC to strive to improve the lives of South Africans. Our country achieved a peaceful transition to democracy amidst fears and many non-believers. Many said that it was humanly unattainable to do what we did without a civil war. Can we forget so quickly how devastating apartheid really was for our people now that we are in democracy? And I'm not saying that the legacy of apartheid is gone, because the legacy of it lives with us every day. But we are strengthened with our resolve to recover, rebuild, and heal and restore. And I say this as the government holds firm, and this comes from the National Development Plan, holds firm across every sphere of our daily lives, that we achieve practical solutions, drawing from the energies of the people, growing an inclusive economy, building capabilities, enhancing the capacity of the state, promoting leadership and partnership throughout society. And yet our government can't do it alone. And it is our right as citizens and as business owners, not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's why we're here today. Because I believe that overcoming is in all of our natures. And even though some of us may not feel like it right now, by working together, learning from each other, rebuilding a South African economy that includes all, and specifically building your business that enables the economy and you as an individual to thrive and also be happy. By working together, learning from each other, rebuilding the South African economy. I'm proud to present our accomplished young business experts here today. And many of them have faced similar problems probably to what you've faced as a business. But they've learned, and they're here today to share their stories and their expertise, and also to answer your specific questions. Perhaps some of you out there as businesses have also lessons you'd like to share with us, and we encourage you to do so. Us at the PBF, we're a subscription-based social compact for business, and we urge you to consider joining us to play your part in rebuilding our economy. The PBF is known as a conduit of dialogue between ANC leaders and business. That's really what we've always been doing, but actually we're more than that. We're a network of businesses, of like-minded people who want a better South Africa for all. And we urge you to be part of that and to build this, because we all know that that's what we all want. And I'd like to thank Life Retreat for bringing us here together today, because together we are stronger. I thank you all, and we hope today is of help. And moving forward, if you need any help or information, please just put a request in the chat box during this webinar, and we will send you more information. With that, I hand over to Trish from Life Retreat.
Thank you, Sasha. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Life Retreat's focus is on wellness in the workplace, but we've had to change our focus slightly because of the COVID-19 crisis. So we're focusing now on wellness of the workplace. Hence that we have brought all these beautiful experts on board to motivate us, to educate us, to share with us. And somewhere along the line, we hope that it shifts something in your thinking so that your business can survive. Our goal is to not only help businesses to survive, as Sasha says, but to thrive. Now is the time for us all to stick together and support and encourage each other. Thanks to the PBF, we are live today. We'll be focusing on giving you practical tools, which we encourage you to begin using immediately. It is time for us to remain positive and healthy over this time. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Sipakazi.
Thank you very much, Trish and Sasha. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sipakazi Kwakweni, and this morning I will be your masterclass facilitator. And really, this is, as Trish and Sasha have mentioned, this is really us building a community of support. And through this masterclass, our intention is to really start looking at solutions. I mean, we are in day 56, if I'm correct, if I've not lost count of our lockdown. and we've been crippled by fear of loss, loss of life, loss of health, loss of livelihoods. And I think as we prepare for the next level of lockdown, I think it is important that we start to look at that fear in the eye and actually really come up and get into action as to this new normal that everybody is talking about. And really, my role today is to really set the tone and just really take you through and introduce you to the speakers. But before I can do that, I mean, this is really meant to be an interactive session. So we do want to hear from the participants as well. And I would like to first start by posing a question to the participants. And you can submit your answers via chat, and really around what comes up in your mind when you hear the word evolve. It was your password to be able to access this webinar this morning. So really, just spend some time and just share with us what evolve means for you. I'm going to be looking at the chats as well, just to see your responses. And then also while you are looking at what evolve means for you, I also wanted to ask what your expectations are for the next 2 hours. But I want to reframe expectations, because when you've got expectations, you've got more chances of getting disappointed because we may not be able to meet your expectations. But I want to reframe it and ask what your intention is. So what is your intention for participating in this webinar? And if there's one thing that you can take away with, whatever you can take away from the next 2 hours, what would that be? You can also just put that on the chat. And I can see from your responses around evolve, it's change for better, shed the old and adapt to the new. I see adapt, I see leveling up, growing, expanding, adapting. And then from your intentions, I can see, part of the evolving is to embrace the new normal, yes. And I guess also with intentions, people are looking to embrace the new normal. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Evolve to me is being able to think out of the box. I've gone from a completely brick and mortar business, which has been closed for 2 months now, to a completely online business. And I had to think out of the box to enable me to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Trish. So it is exactly all of that. I mean, I also had develop, change, grow, progress, advance, and go forward. And without wasting any more time, we are definitely going to be doing that going forward into the masterclass. And really my role today is to introduce our panel of experts and speakers. And first, and obviously also our 4 topics. And first up, we've got Bongani Khanyile. And I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. But before he can do that, I just also want to introduce really the 4 areas that we're going to be focusing on today. So it's business during and beyond COVID-19. So this new normal that everybody is talking about. We're going to be looking at business wellness, but specifically from the context of, the balance of saving lives and livelihoods. And we've got Dr. Carmen James here with us as well, is going to be sharing from that. And then we're going to be looking at human resource solutions that we could begin to explore during and beyond COVID-19. And then we've got a whole new innovative concept that we want to explore around mindfulness for business. And without any time wasted, Bongani, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi, Sipho. Hi, everyone. My name is Bongani Khanyile. I am a labor lawyer. I'm a director of my own practice. I'm also a business commentator. That seems to be thrust in that level, and I'm excited to be here as well.
Thank you, Bongani. So, obviously we're buzzing with all kinds of questions. And I think the very first question one would want to ask is, what is this new normal? And what does it mean for business?
I will start off by saying, let me resist the urge to, to be a prophet of doom, as tempting as it is, and try and paint at the end of this a positive, picture of what our economy will look like. So I want to actually deal with the diagnosis and prognosis, and perhaps a preamble to my answer to your question, Sipo, is to put a context of our economy during this debacle. And because we know it's common cause that the South African economy was already on ICU when COVID-19 struck us. So it's not that we just had a sudden turn. We were heading a particular direction, which really adding the mix of COVID-19 into this cauldron really catapulted us to this porous state we're in. And I can confirm this because during the lockdown weekend, the first weekend of the lockdown, we were downgraded by a rating company to junk status. And that tarnished our reputation as a preferred investment destination. And that's largely due to lack of a reliable power supply inter alia that we experience in South Africa. Now, to add into that volatile economy of COVID-19, I want to submit as early as now that it will not be business as usual. Business as we know it is not going to happen. It will change. And therefore, companies must devise a lockdown strategy. It's very important because we are on level 4. We'll go to level 3. Who knows where level 1 is going to be? So talks around the strategy should be happening in the boardrooms or virtual boardrooms of companies. To avoid hemorrhaging of jobs, they must strive, that's business, to use technology to augment people, not to replace them. And I say this because as a labor lawyer, I'm in the forefront of retrenchments. Either I'm helping to initiate them. Today I could be doing that tomorrow. I'm helping salvaging a job. That's part of what I do. So I see the first hand of this pandemic to our business and to the employees and the society at large. And some companies didn't have to wait for lockdown to come into effect. At the announcement by the president that we are going on lockdown, already Section 1893 notices were being handed to employees already being retrenched, and retrenchments were taking place virtually. And I noticed over this 3-4 week period that the companies that have gone digital are actually coping much better. They're more resilient to COVID-19 as opposed to those that have not embraced. They're still sussing out whether can they operate digitally. And the truth of the matter, and all of us probably can attest to this, is that no sector has been left unaffected by COVID-19. It has affected everybody and every sector. We're seeing a drop in productivity in the mines, which is a major direct contributor to the GDP. And we are also seeing indirect contribution being affected, such as the retailers who are unable to pay their rentals. There's job carnage in manufacturing, in logistics, in retail. And so I've said the other day that in South Africa, we're not going to experience many loss of lives like we're seeing in the States. But what we are going to experience is a lot of businesses folding because of a failure to innovate, to rise up to the challenge of COVID-19, to lift your hand up and say, I'm responding digitally because we're going to have limited physical context. We see that in the durations, the sectors around the skills shortages in the country, we could lose academic here. That speaks to educational institutions not being able to function. The tourism industry is very negatively affected. So what's going to happen after this? So the pundits and commentators of the economy have said, we're going to experience a global recession, and maybe let's look at it from there. What will we do in the advent of a global recession, which is actually being pundited post-COVID-19? The business that will survive this period is a business that have made plans, taking into account the possibility of a global recession, as it were. Airlines have suffered the most. There's retrenchment happening at the SAA, as we know it. There's court battles around that. And that tells you that even professions traditionally that are known to have job security, such as the one I am in, which is the legal profession, has also been affected. Somebody opined, I think he's from America, who said, you know you're in trouble when even lawyers are getting retrenched. That's where we are. So no one is really, really safe. So what will change then? What will be this new normal, Sipogazi? Just to grab the bull by its proverbial horn. I'm going to make a few submissions how I think this normal will actually be. There will be a cultural and behavioral shift. That's already happening. You know, if you're a person that's very expressive like myself, you like to feel another human being, you like to shake hands, you like to hug. In the workplace, you are more compassionate. Well, that's not going to happen now. It's going to change. The way we interact with colleagues, the way we interact with clients is going to change. We are now talking here virtually. Everyone is in their own safe space. That's a new way of doing business. That's a way of consulting. I've been a reluctant 4IR practitioner, if I can call myself that, because I didn't feel I can effectively communicate digitally than if you see me in person. But if my business is going to survive this period, this epoch, I'm going to have to learn to consult effectively, even online. And also, quite interestingly, I did a first case last week in court where I still regrettably had to wear the robe and be in my study and appear in front of the judge and not forget the court etiquette. And as I spoke to the judge, we use my lord or my lady, and this was a male judge. I had to say, can you hear me, my lord? Can you hear me, my lord? I can't see you, my lord. And the neighbor rushed into my aid thinking this guy is in a fervent prayer and I need to stand the gap and assist him. You know, but that's the new normal. We're not going to go around flaunting our robes and big bags. We have to adjust. That's the profession. You know, and there'll be a lot of emphasis, and I think Refilio can speak much better and coherently about this than I can, but there will be a lot of emphasis on health and safety measures in the workplace. We know that you know, the Occupational Health Act now comes to the fore. Now employees have to be safe. We know that there are regulation 11E that talks about sanitizer, talks about masks. So there's a premium that's placed a lot on health and safety in the workplace. Companies need to focus on that. Companies need to make a budget on that. And companies have to embrace working remotely. I love having team meetings, sitting down with my staff, engaging them, finding out how they are before we get to the business of the day. That's not happening. Where they are, I need to make sure, trying to fight the battles of data and airtime, make sure that I finish my agenda and we get on with it. You know, those are the struggles of entrepreneurs. Sectors like transportation, storage, warehouse, and companies. Those sectors that enable digital information, entertainment, such as work and office system, those ones will fare better. I submit. I think those ones that have made themselves, that have placed themselves at the heart of the economic, information technology will really survive this. And the businesses and industries that depend on people's behavior, like travel, hotels and airlines, as well as retailers, will not bounce back anytime soon. If there was a year I was hoping that we won't have COVID-19, would have been 2020. I had a whole lot of trips that I had, especially in May. Unfortunately, that's canceled. But that tells you that there's an industry that has lost out on just that particular travel. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bongani.
We have a question from Lindsay,
Yes.
who would like to know, are high court cases happening at the moment? Something we'd probably all be interested in finding out.
Yes, they are. They are happening. What the courts are doing, they are entertaining what we call urgent matters that have to do with the pandemic itself. They're also entertaining matters of maintenance and domestic issues like domestic violence. Those matters are happening. Rarely labor law matters, but matters that have to do with urgent retrenchments, the courts are entertaining. So yes, the courts are really functioning, but at a limited basis. Sipho?
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other questions, Trish, that you want to refer to Bongani before we move on to the next speaker?
Yes, please. There's someone that's asking about government help for small businesses and informal businesses. But I think this is a conversation all on its own. So what we can maybe do, it's up to you, Bongani, but maybe we can, after this, reply to people in more detail and really try and help them out. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. At this point, I just want to end off by saying maybe what should be done practically before the next speaker speaks. Is that companies will have to really review their business plans and business models. They need to be innovative. They need to look at the manner in which they trade, whether it will be geared for this period. I would say a business plan maybe of 12 to 18 months will be appropriate, maybe to see how resilient your company can be. We need to review supply chain policies and consider local supplies. I mean, other countries now, we can't go to China, we can't go to the States. So I think the Department of Treasury, I'm glad there's the ANC involved in the initiative. They need to be the Treasury that's spearheading the whole logistics, local logistics as it were. And then businesses must review their HR policies from a disciplinary code. The workplace is going to change in its definition. You no longer be in the office. The workplace must be defined to even mean the comfort of your home. It doesn't mean a holiday. There should be certainty as to what do I do between 8 to 5 when I'm at home in company hours, so to speak. Businesses have to assess remote working strategies. They must prepare fully the compliance with POPI Act, the Protection of Personal Information Act. It's going to come to the fore now, because how we communicate digitally, there are issues of personal information that the owners of the companies to really protect. And so we need to develop a policy around that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Bongani. Thank you for enlightening us, obviously, as to how this new normal could potentially look like for businesses, and how businesses can also start preparing them for this new future, this newness that we actually find ourselves in. Okay, without wasting any more time, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Let me just get the presentation flowing. Yes, so we've got Dr. Carmen James, who is actually a survivor of COVID-19. So she'll be sharing her perspective, obviously her experience, but also focusing really on the physical and the mental impact of COVID-19 on employees. So I'm going to hand over to you, Carmen, and I'm going to stop sharing.
Good morning, everybody. Here we go. Good morning. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a ton to get through, so I'm going to jump right into it. Thank you so much to the Progressive Business Forum and to Life Retreat for having me this morning. And today we're going to be speaking a bit about business wellness. So how do we save lives and livelihood? As Bokazi mentioned, I did recover from COVID-19 infection. So I'll share a little bit about my experience, not to focus too much on that, but let's get right into it. And I just want to start off by talking a little bit about the bees. Okay, just bear with me here. We know that I'm sure the first word association that comes with bees is honey. We know that at this time, especially, honey can be quite helpful from a health perspective, right? It's got antibacterial properties. It's got anti-inflammatory properties, fantastic product that comes from bees. Bees also make propolis. We know that the hard resin that occurs in beehives is actually used by bees to kind of facilitate the structure of the hive, but it's also used to try and limit the spread of infection. So let's say, for example, a bee dies within the hive. Bees actually use propolis to seal off those bee carcasses to prevent them from contaminating the rest of the hive. But something that perhaps we don't really think about that much when we think of bees is the fact that bees are responsible for pollination. And so bees get hungry, just like we do, and they actually drink nectar, which is their carbohydrate source, and they also eat the pollen, which is the protein that comes from flowering plants. And as they're eating as a byproduct of their feeding pattern, they actually go and pollinate many plants. And in fact, bees are responsible for pollinating up to 70% of 100 of the world's most popular crops that we live off of. And this list of food items that bees are responsible for pollinating is by no means exhaustive, but it just gives you this awesome picture of just how intricately involved bees are in our daily lives. And even if you're not a vegetarian, bees are important because bees are responsible for the food that we use to feed our livestock. And so they're responsible for our meat as well as our dairy industry. But the problem is that the bees are dying. And this is an incredible phenomenon that's happening. If you look at bee producing colonies in the United States, in 1945, there were 5.9 million bee colonies. The latest statistics tell us in 2017, there are 2.6 million bee colonies. And this is a byproduct of what we call colony collapse disorder. Now, you may be wondering, well, why are the bees dying? And the answer is that the causes of colony collapse disorder are many, but some of the key contributors include things like a change in our farming practices. We are now we are farming like in a monocrop culture, where we're growing lots and lots of the same thing at the same time. The other thing is that they're parasites that are killing the bees. This may be interesting for you to know, but they're actually like bee parasites that kind of sit on the surface of the bees, sucking their blood and actually infecting our bees. And in addition to that, you've got pesticides. Now, we often use pesticides because we are doing monocrop farming. And as a result, a lot of the bees are getting poisoned, and they sometimes die as a direct result of that. But then in other instances, the bees become confused and disorientated, can have seizures, and they don't actually make it back to their hives. And so I thought this was a very cute quote, and it comes directly from the bees. And it says, if we die, we are taking you with us. And now you might be wondering, what on earth does this have to do with business wellness? Well, I think that there are multiple parallels that we can draw between the bees and the workforce. You know, you've heard the saying, as busy as a bee. And I think the fact that these tiny little creatures are able to create these massive beehives is just a reflection of how we as humanity and as the workforce are able to construct entire cities, massive amounts of production. You know, we get through, we produce so much on a daily basis. And there's also a hierarchy within the beehives. We know that there's a boss lady, the queen bee, in charge of the whole hive, right? And then you get the little worker bees that are working very hard to do all kinds of other things. And also there's a lot of organization within the beehives. I mentioned propolis, and I mentioned how, you know, bees actually have like their own healthcare system where they try to ensure that the infection doesn't spread to the rest of the hive. So in many ways, we are akin as the workforce to the bee population. And really, if we want to get to the bottom of this colony collapse disorder, the only way that we are going to solve the bee problem is if we address the underlying root cause of what is killing the bees. And so the question becomes, well, what is killing us then? At the moment, it seems that we're dying from COVID-19. This is the only thing that we're talking about. And this coronavirus, so CO standing for corona, VI standing for virus, D standing for disease, and 19 designated because it was discovered in 2019. We know that corona means crown. And if we look at this virus under a microscope, it actually looks like there is a crown all around it. That's why it has the name corona. We know that it is a contagious viral infection, and it's again the ability to spread from person to person. We know that it was first discovered in Wuhan, China in December of last year, or rather November of last year, and it's now spread across the entire world. And COVID-19, while coronaviruses, this big family of viruses, is really known to infect animals, it's now a new infection. This COVID-19 disease is a new infection in human beings. And so we know that COVID-19 affects the airways or the respiratory tract, which can be divided into the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. Upper respiratory tract coming from the nose all the way to the voice box, and the lower respiratory tract from the trachea, which is around the area of the Adam's apple, down to the tiny air sacs in the bottom of the lungs. Now, the symptoms of COVID-19 we know can range from no symptoms, what we call asymptomatic people, all the way to death. And we know that these asymptomatic people with absolutely no symptoms, only discover that they're COVID-19 positive when they get a test done. Of those people, however, who are symptomatic for COVID-19, we know that the majority, by and large, majority of people will experience mild symptoms. And they actually can recover at home or in an isolation facility. We also gratefully know that children tend to display very mild symptoms of COVID-19 as well. But a small percentage of people, approximately 20%, will develop severe symptoms and complications such as pneumonia, and they may require hospital admission and supportive treatment. And again, as we said, very rarely COVID-19 can in fact lead to death. Now, the symptoms, as we said, they affect the respiratory tract, and so they include things like cough and shortness of breath and sore throat and fever and loss of energy, loss of appetite. Do any of these symptoms look familiar to you? You guys know that we're coming up to flu season, and it's really pretty similar, the experience in your body as if you had a cold or like a flu-like illness. Personally, when I was diagnosed with COVID-19, my symptoms were actually quite mild. I had a sore throat, had severe body pain, and just this fatigue. I did not have a cough. I didn't have the shortness of breath. So symptoms can vary from person to person. In some instances, people may even experience diarrhea and vomiting. And COVID-19, we know, spreads via droplet infection. So the coughs and the sneezes of infected people carry these contaminated viral particles, and they can spread from person to person in that way. If you imagine you were standing up close to this guy when he was coughing, and one of those droplets or a few of those droplets landed in your mouth or landed in your nose or in your eyes, that's really how COVID-19 infection spreads. The other thing is that those droplets can then go ahead and land on surfaces, commonly things like tables. And if you touch a contaminated surface and then you touch your eyes, you touch your nose, or you touch your mouth, you can actually spread COVID-19 infection into your own body. We also know at this stage that there are no approved treatments for COVID-19 as yet. There's no vaccination. We know that there are trials underway, but as of today, there's no approved treatments for COVID-19. And so treatment remains what we call supportive, which basically means you treat the symptoms. If you have a sore throat, for example, you take some lozenges. If you have a cough, you take a cough mixture, etc. Maybe you'll even take some honey, for example. But at the moment, there's no specific treatment for COVID-19. We know that as a result of the way this disease spreads, that we need to be doing things like maintaining our physical distance from each other. So 1.5 to 2 meters distance from each other at all times. We know that our way of interacting now socially, things like shaking hands and hugging, is a thing of the past at the moment. We know that we should stay at home and that we should avoid going out unless we're going to seek essential services. And that all of us now are mandated to wear a cloth face covering when we go out into public and when we go into the workplace. And we also know that we should be washing our hands at least for 20 seconds with soap and water. Sing happy birthday to yourself twice, and ensure that you're washing your hands thoroughly, making sure you get all areas of your hands, between your fingers, the backs of your hands, your fingertips, and that we should use soap and water. And if that's not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. We know that we've been told, don't touch your face, because we touch our faces about 1,000 times a day. We're not supposed to touch our eyes, our nose, our mouth with unwashed hands, that we should cover our cough when we're coughing and sneezing with a bent elbow or with a tissue, and then throw those tissues away. And we know that we also need to be sanitizing frequently washed surfaces regularly. And then a few things that we need to keep in mind as well when it comes to wearing a face mask is that we shouldn't be touching them. Once you put your mask on, you should avoid touching your mask, and especially don't remove it when you're talking, and don't wear it around your neck, for example. It's important to make sure that you're washing your hands regularly when you are wearing a mask, and that when you're removing it by the straps. We also know that our masks should fit us well. They should cover our nose, they should cover our chin, there shouldn't be any gaps on the side, and that we must be careful where we leave our masks. We shouldn't be leaving them on tabletops, for example. But we also know that there's a group of people who tend to be at the highest risk for severe disease. And we know that those are the elderly, as well as people with underlying chronic medical conditions. So things like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic lung disease, people who are living with HIV who are perhaps not on treatment or whose treatment is ineffective at suppressing their viral load. We know that people who've had cancer and are currently on chemotherapy and radiation therapy, all these treatments suppress the immune system. And so I thought I'd just share with you this latest list of the top 10 causes of death in South Africa. And if you look at this list, what's fascinating about this list is that for South Africa, as an emerging country, half of the reasons why we are dying as South Africans are because of what we call non-communicable diseases. These are diseases of lifestyle, diabetes, heart disease, cerebral vascular diseases, which is things like stroke, hypertensive diseases, and ischemic heart disease, things like angina and heart attacks. If we look at the leading causes of death in the USA, we're pretty similar. Interestingly, our diabetes deaths are number 2 on our list. In the United States, they're sitting at number 7. Now that's a fascinating comparison between 2 countries that are not supposed to be so alike with regards to their causes of death. Now, what does this have to do with our businesses? Well, I think this quote from Corporate Wellness magazine kind of puts it into perspective. And it says that chronic disease remains the leading cause of disability, death, and workplace productivity losses globally. And that employers, therefore, are saddled with the responsibility of curbing this trend by creating interventions that integrate a healthy work environment with health promotion programs, which are aimed at changing individual health behaviors. And so this fascinating article, which was initially, the study was done in 1990, but it's been repeated twice, and the results have been reproduced in both the subsequent studies. And this cheeky article was titled Actual Causes of Death in the United States. And the basic premise of the study was that chronic diseases are really not killing people, but rather 3 habits are killing us. The first, tobacco smoking. The second, poor diet. And the third, a lack of physical activity. And we know that the impact of having healthy employees, having a healthy workforce, is a reduction in absenteeism, a reduction in presenteeism, which is employees physically at work, but not productively at work. We know that healthy employees are much more loyal, and that there's increased productivity and increased profits as a result as well. And traditionally, corporate wellness has focused around this type of stuff, right? Annual wellness days and things like exercise programs and that type of thing. But traditionally, we've been approaching business and corporate wellness like this kind of like a carrot and stick approach, where if employees do something, then they get something in return. But really what we should be looking at, and I think this is the fantastic opportunity that COVID-19 has actually brought this idea front and center, is that we need to be changing our mindset around health and wellness in the workplace. And if we look at the corporate wellness trends of 2020, we'll see from this carrot and stick approach to rather developing a more holistic approach to wellness, to creating work-life balance, to having things like health coaching, therapy sessions, to inclusive leaderships, right? And so I think the take home here is that the best way to approach business wellness today, but also beyond COVID-19, is by creating a culture of wellness within the workplace. And so on a micro level, each person can do something to help improve not only their wellness, but the wellness of their workplace by helping themselves to be healthier. And the way we can do this on an individual level is by helping to support our own immune systems. Remember that your immune system is the most important thing that you need right now. And I believe it's probably the reason why I was able to get over this infection so quickly, was because I work really hard to try and boost my immune system. And how can we do that? Well, by eating healthy food and by avoiding things like junk food and sugar, Ensuring that you eat the rainbow, right? So eat fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, drink a lot of water, make sure you're hydrated, get enough rest. I think this culture of sleep deprivation, especially in the workplace, needs to come to an end now, because sleep is vitally important for our immune function. Some supplements you can consider taking include things like vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc as well. And to keep moving, exercise is vitally important to support your immune system. But what can we do on a workplace level? We know at the moment that we need to be paying particular attention to the spread of COVID-19 within the workplace. And so screening of staff becomes important, making sure that if staff are coming physically into the workplace, that we're taking temperature on a daily basis, and that we're tracking and monitoring the symptoms of our staff. That we have a designated person whose one responsibility, aside from what they're doing on a work level, is to ensure that any issues and any concerns and any problems that are coming up from employees, that they're addressed by one designated person. We need to continue education and build more awareness within the workplace around COVID-19 and beyond. This is an opportunity for us to start these conversations about how do we maintain our health. We all know that employees are the lifeblood of any business, whether it's just you or whether you have a team of people around you. We also need to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open, in particular when it comes to reporting symptoms. Oftentimes people can sometimes feel like they don't want to report how they're feeling or the fact that they're sick because of fear. And so we need to create a culture where we have open communication and open conversations. As we mentioned, to keep our physical distance away from each other, vitally important. I'd encourage you to keep open collaboration with the health department as well. The Department of Health is committed to making sure that they are supporting companies at this time. And so any queries and questions can be related to them as well. And make sure that you're isolating sick workers if they come into the workplace, that you're ensuring that there's a specific designated area for them to be until appropriate healthcare becomes available. We also need to make sure that employees in the workplace is safe, so that there must be adequate soap, adequate sanitizers, paper towels, etc. for staff to ensure that they are keeping their areas sanitized. Stay informed. It's important for you to know what's going on. And the other thing that's vitally important, especially in the workplace, is actively addressing stigma. Communication is so important around this. And what I've learned is that stigma is just a manifestation of fear. And if we can talk more about this, and speaking about stigma, I think that, an important thing that needs to be actively pursued is stress management. I'm just going to briefly go into what is stress before I round up. And I think that the clearest way I can illustrate this is by telling you how you would feel if you were walking in the forest and you saw a bear. It would feel like in your body would go into red alert, right? Adrenaline and cortisol, which are your stress hormones, would be released. And your stress response is called the fight, flight, or freeze response. So either you want to fight this bear, or you want to run away, or you want to freeze, and hopefully the bear won't see you. But what's happening physically in your body is your blood pressure is going up, your heart rate is climbing, your muscles are starting to tense so that you can either run away or fight. Your breathing is becoming more shallow and you're breathing faster than usual. Your blood starts to thicken, because if the bear were to attack you, you don't want to bleed to death. You want your blood to be thick so that you don't bleed out from an injury. Your eyes open wide and your pupils dilate so that you can be able to take in your environment, so that you can find an escape route. But importantly, your reproductive system is going to shut down at the same time, because it's not a priority at that moment. The priority is your life. The other thing is your digestion is going to slow down. If you just eaten a cheeseburger before you saw the bear, your priority is not to digest that cheeseburger in that moment. It's to escape from the bear and survive. But I think very importantly at this moment is that our immune systems are going to switch off. Because if you had coronavirus at that moment when you were facing that bear, your body's priority is not to kill the coronavirus. It's to ensure that you escape. And so as a result, we're not faced with bears on a daily basis. We're faced with all kinds of other things. And as a result, our bodies are under this continuous stress. And so perhaps it's a little bit clearer now why it is that people with underlying chronic medical conditions are more at risk for severe COVID-19 infection. And perhaps why it's so important for us to support our bodies and manage our stress. And we're going to learn a little bit more in a few moments. I won't dwell too much on this because we're going to learn about more mindfulness in a moment. But important, stress management is so important that we need to become aware of what is stressing us out and what stress feels like in our bodies, that we need to try and avoid the things that stress us. And we need to learn to adapt to our environment and accept the things that we cannot change and change those things that we can by taking action. And so I hope that that helps you. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I've left my contact information on the screen. But yeah, it's an awesome privilege.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for such an insightful presentation, which leads perfectly to our next panel member around HR issues. So now, how do we take everything that Carmen has said to us, and how do you apply all of that in the workplace from a human resources perspective? So I'm going to hand over to Refilwe to take us through. Thank you, Refilwe.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Refilwe. I'm going to share, I'm an HR professional. I think Bongani and Carmen have said a lot regarding the workplace safety and HR-related issues when it comes to COVID-19 and how we're dealing with it as businesses. I'm going to share a presentation around health and safety. I'm going to cover a number of aspects that have already been mentioned by Carmen and as well Bongani. I think it interlinks quite well for us to actually have a broader understanding of what we're talking about. I'm just going to put up my presentation. Okay, I hope you all have visibility of that. So that's just an introduction of who I am, an HR professional. I've been working in various industries as HR, and mostly HR is human resources. We've now evolved and transitioned to calling it human capital. And I think that's quite something that we need to take focus on. It's human capital, meaning our people are our resources. Our people are our assets within the workplace. So that is why it's important for us to look after them and take care of the human capital assets within our businesses and our organizations. And I think it's something that we need to be mindful of. When we speak of human resources, we're not speaking of administrative issues. We're speaking of our people, our employees, the people that we do business with. And that's something that we really, really need to take care of. So basically, I'm going to focus on 4 areas which have been touched on already. It's health and safety and how you return people to work, the policies and procedures that you need to consider, employee support as well, how we support our employees during this time. We need to move away from punitive measures and move to supportive measures for our employees. We've also got business continuity. So now we're moving away from the normal office environment and people are working remotely. So what are the solutions with regard to that? Or rather, what do we need to keep in mind? What do we need to be mindful of? Rather, it's nice that this whole course is around mindfulness. So we need to just focus on areas where we need to be mindful of certain things, be aware of certain things as we move on and as we are going through this pandemic. So the first thing is health and safety. What is important for businesses to consider? What do we need to understand and know regarding the health and safety of the employees and our workers? And this includes our clients as well. Some of us are interacting with different people coming into our offices as we unlock into the various stages of lockdown. So from level 4 now, we'll be moving to level 3. There'll be more movement between people and more movement coming into businesses. So the remote environment that we've been working in is going to change. So as employers and as businesses, we need to start adhering to the current regulations with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I'm going to share a link at the end of this with the different guidelines that are shared with us by the Department of Employment and Labor around COVID-19 and health and safety in the workplace. So the basic thing is that employers and businesses, we need to ensure that we have safe and healthy environments for people to work in. How do we ensure that? We need to there's policies that need to be put in place. So the health and safety guidelines basically give an outline and direction as the etiquette of COVID-19 has been communicated throughout. It's been communicated by the minister, by the president, how we need to cough, how we should cough, how social distancing, using of masks and washing of hands and sanitizing our hands and so on. So you need to, in the workplace. In the workplace, you're used to having maybe open plan. So in open plan offices, now how do you structure your offices? What is the layout going to be like in terms of social distancing? So adopting that new culture, adopting the new etiquette is quite important for us as businesses to take into account. We need to be mindful that our environment needs to be clean. We need to disinfect. Do we train the people that are cleaning the offices? Some of us have got small offices and big entities where we've got people who are cleaning. Are they aware of the etiquette of cleaning? Are they aware of the different regulations in terms of how often do we need to clean, the hygiene? And the good thing about, I'll say the positive thing about COVID-19 is that it promotes what we should have always promoted ourselves as human beings, and that is hygiene. Hygiene for all of us as persons and within the employment environment. And that is something that we need to really drive and move forward and start instilling as a culture going forward. So part of the regulations is that we, as Dr. Carmen has mentioned, that protective equipment, personal protective equipment, which includes your facial masks, which includes gloves, depending on the type of environment that the person is working in. There's various other things, but we just need to ensure that people are knowledgeable, they trained about COVID-19 specific related etiquette and the things that come with it, the stigma. I think Dr. Carmen mentioned something about the stigma. So within the environment, as employees, as we work together, we need to support each other. Once we understand and once relevant and informative information is communicated to people, we then understand the relationship of how the relationship should be of the employees, those living with COVID-19, those with families with COVID-19, and how we can support each other. So providing information to our employees is is quite important. And the other thing that I think is important that we need to note and we need to be aware of, there's something called the risk assessment. So as an employer, as a business, as people come back, have you done your assessment, the risk assessment? What are the major areas of risk and how are you going to mitigate those risks? So there's high risk areas, low risk, medium risk. It goes on a range of things. I'll share a sample of a risk assessment as well with the participants so that you can just look and see for your business how you can apply it. It's actually really just a plain template. You can include your own logos and all of that to assist you when you ask yourself questions. Are you really ready to have people back in the workplace? Are you really ready in terms of the regulations and the guidelines that have been set? Have you prepared yourself for this for the return of people back to work as we move on to level 3, level 2, and eventually level 1? What preventative measures are you putting in place? So you need to put preventative measures. Those preventative measures include the training that I've mentioned, include the personal equipment, it includes having sanitizers available or washing stations available at the entrances, at the exit of your premises as a business. And it's not just for you, for your own safety. It's not just for the people in the business. As I said, we've got clients and customers that you also need to take care of. So those people also need to be taken into account as and when you make those preventative measures and you develop those preventative measures. One thing that I think is important is to keep record of the register of people that are coming in and that are coming out. So that actually helps with the tracing as well. And also just as a business to keep yourself safe in terms of saying, look, I have complied with the requirements of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I have complied with the guidelines and the requirements that I needed to do. Dr. Carmen mentioned something about screening. Screening is very important. People that come in and out of your premises, you need to screen them. You need to do your temperature checks. You can do your questionnaires where you ask the people as they come in, have you been in contact with someone with COVID-19? Are you experiencing any of the following symptoms, of which the symptoms have been communicated? Nausea, it could be a cough, sore throat, there's a number of them. But it's important that you know, who you are bringing into the business and who is coming out of your business. And Dr. Carmen also mentioned something about underlying conditions and people that are vulnerable to the virus, the over 60s. How do you handle that as a business? So let's say, for example, you've got 3 or 4 people that are 60 and that have underlying conditions, but you have a requirement for them to come into the office space and work. You need to handle that with care. So there are obviously, the doctor will provide deeper detail in that. There are controlled conditions and uncontrolled conditions. So you do an assessment on how critical is this particular underlying condition or chronic illness for this person, how vulnerable is this person. So we need to, like I said, we're looking at measures that are not punitive, but rather supportive to the employees. So we're not looking to say, you can't come to work, therefore I'm laying you off, or I need to retrench you because you can't. Let's look at ways in which we can support the employees who do have underlying conditions and who are at the vulnerable age that has been identified. So that communication and feedback between employer and employee is quite important. So the business needs to take take cognizance of how the employees are. Ordinarily, we really don't know our people, and that's something that COVID-19 is teaching us. We don't know who's suffering much. You don't know what is happening with another person. Are they living with someone with HIV and AIDS? Are they living with a child who is asthmatic? You know, now you get to know your people. And that's the humane part of COVID-19. That's the positive part of COVID-19. It's important to hold those conversations and engagements with your employees. Keep it open. The communication channels need to be open where your employees can come to you and say, listen, this is what I'm going through, and how do you support them going forward? And in terms of supporting them, it's just basically you need to promote a healthy lifestyle. You promote a healthy lifestyle for them, and that becomes the culture of a business. And culture is defined as a system of shared values and principles by a unit of people. So the behavior is going to be the same. The behavior is going to be similar for that particular group of people. And that is what culture is. So once you promote that and you instill that, that becomes the culture of your business. So employee wellness, hygiene, health becomes the culture of your business. And that is part of the mitigating strategies that you can put in place. And that is just a culture. That's how you live the business. That's how everybody behaves within your space, within your environment. So there's things that you can change. You can change the mindset. You can change the behavior by you as a business, as an employer, being mindful of what you need to address. And also that allows your employees as well to be mindful of what they need to do within the workspace. Okay. So I've mentioned about employee support, and that's one of the things. So the doctor mentioned anxiety, there's depression, there's a lot of fear. So the support measures, some entities might be big, they have maybe occupational wellness that's in place, but we need to also allow time for employees to actually address such issues. Maybe by encouraging them to speak out to who you feel comfortable with, speak out to other people. There's healthcare practitioners who are psychologists and therapists that can assist with this. We need to also consider as how do we support our employees in terms of absenteeism, because there's going to be a rise in this and it will affect the business. So the more people stay away from work, from home, and stay at home, that affects the business in a sense. So that's where you need to kind of be innovative in terms of how you can assist the employees who need to stay at home, either to take care of someone in the work at home or to take care of themselves. As an employer, those are things that you need to consider. Have we thought that far as to how are we going to assist employees who are now increasingly absent in the workplace and business is not continuing as normal? It's not business as normal, it's business unusual. So those are things that we need to start looking into and moving away from the punitive measures where if you don't come, it's no work, no pay, you know, those things. There's underlying issues that surround that. That is why the channels of communication need to be open so that we understand what is going on. And also be transparent to our employees to say, this is where we are. Our business is not doing so well, or our business is doing fine. And that is something that will then address the fear and the anxiety, because a lot of people are looking and thinking, okay, I'm going to lose my job. My business is probably not, our company is probably not doing well. I'm going to lose my business for that matter. So it's things that we need to start looking into, being transparent about the financial status of your company, about where you are, where you want to be, and provide direction to your employees so that they know how they can alter themselves to fit into your business, to fit into the new ways of doing things, right? So when it comes to policies, like I said, we need to be supportive. One of the ways we need to be supportive, but in a structured manner. So once we deal with absenteeism, we deal with leave and so on as supportive, but it needs to be structured. We need to put policies in place so that we can control the situation, we control the environment in a sense, so that people don't go outside of the scope where you now can't handle it. If people go and are absent concurrently, do you apply the leave policy? Do you allow them? And there needs to be fairness and equity with your policies. One of the things is that COVID-19 must be accommodated in your sick leave currently. I think, Bongani, you can give direction if I'm wrong, but I know the 14 days quarantine is now, you need to make provision for that in your sick leave. Although it has to be, it's paid sick leave. However, if maybe an employee has exhausted that sick leave, then it becomes unpaid leave. But in becoming unpaid leave, employees have the relief. There's the TERS, they call it TERS, it's the Temporary Employee Relief Scheme, as well as the UIF. But what the Department of Employment and Labor has done, they have said employers must apply for their employees. So as you know, if you know, for example, I won't be able to pay my employees fully this month, I'm going to pay them 75% or 25% or 50%, you need to then support your employees by applying for them with the UIF. And what the UIF, what they've done is, I think what they've done is quite, is an example, because now it's done online. They're not accepting any, well, they are, but they're promoting online applications, which is something that they didn't do before as much as they do now, because they had people who would go and submit your forms and go physically into the office. But now they're trying to promote for people to start doing it online, which is what we need to start adapting. And you see how business changes. Now business is changing and becoming something, it's the new normal now. It's the new norm, where we are going digital, and that is what the Department of Labor is also encouraging. But in formulating the policies, we must always remain within the Labor Relations Act, remain within the basic conditions of the Employment Act, so that we don't fall outside and end up going to people like Yobonganis with the CCMA and so on and so forth. So it's important to maintain the labor legislation in everything that we do. Now, as we work, as we're starting to promote, I think Bongani mentioned remote working. How do you manage the performance of those people? How do you manage the output? You know, computer and data usage. How do you manage that? You need to have policies around that. People will sit at home, waste your resources while we are trying to build a business and generate revenue. You may be losing revenue where people are not actually doing the work. They're sitting at home, watching Netflix and so on. So you need to have those policies in place so that you can actually have a guideline for your employees to know that I can operate within this space and this scope and not beyond that. Anything beyond that will be a breach of what my employer would want me to do. So even the remote work policies, how do you work around that? Some things that you can maybe consider is maybe saying on a daily basis, let's all log in at 8 o'clock, we check in, we set our inputs, and at the end of the day, we clock out. But it's also important for us to understand that there's now families, the kids are at home, people are at home. So we need to rather be flexible about how we manage people's times. I may be able to evening when the kids are asleep, I'm more productive and I'm able to give my output. So it's important to change maybe or consider changing the output measurement or the performance measurement to output rather than
It looks like we're having some challenges with network as technology. Okay.
Oh, sorry. So when it comes to business continuity, I'm going to talk about, so it's important to do a financial risk assessment of your business. Let's not wait for this thing to be at the end and be an outbreak, but we need to know, how does this affect my business? What is the financial performance of my business currently? And where am I going? And by doing that, you'll be able to align yourself to new things. So you tap into mobile technology and guide your people in terms of how we can revive the business if it's going down, and how we can continue with the business if things are going okay. So selecting the digital tools that will help you to manage your people and inform the people and actually guide them in terms of how you do work. Some businesses stopped completely because they could not operate under level 5 or 4. Some businesses continue. And there's various ways in which they can do. So you can now, the main thing is to avoid laying off of people, but rather keeping them on. So let's look at ways and how to roll out maybe flexible working arrangements, maybe reducing the time that the person works instead of laying them off completely. So this works with consultation and communication with the employees, because if you work 50% of the time, I may only be able to pay you 50%. And this is a reality that businesses are facing. Some businesses cannot carry on with the number of people that they have. But what are the other alternatives that we have? Have we considered other alternatives? I mean, even when we do the Section 189, as he mentioned, that you need to consult perhaps, and also when you look at that, you need to look at what other alternatives have you done before going on to the last resort, which will be to lay off a person. So it's important for us to actually start continuing like that and keeping in mind that there are other ways that we can keep on the business, but maybe supporting each other, employer, where the business and the people that are supporting them can get together and understand what are the other ways of us going forward. What are the other ways of us going forward without us losing income or without us affecting the livelihoods of others? That is quite important. So once we have those, like I said, remote working solutions is one of the key ones that we've all been exposed to. I mean, we all sitting at home. Well, I'm sitting at home, and we're working from home. So it's important that we know what the expectations are. We've set clear guidelines. Like I said, you set clear guidelines. 9 o'clock, just to ensure that people remain within, and your resources are not. But what is also important is the tools that you give your employees. Provide them with the necessary tools. Provide them with the necessary equipment and things that they may need to push your business forward. allow them to have their own breathing, allow them to embrace the new way of doing things, because this sitting at home and working from home is stress on its own. Yes, it's something that we might be very excited about sitting at home, but it's something that is stressful as well. So we need to allow our employees to get into the culture of things, because now culture has changed from the normal to a new normal, which we now call the new normal. You need to ensure what contribution can they make ways of doing things. Like now, we're being innovative. In being innovative, there are skills gaps that you would identify. How do you promote development of skills to match the current skills gap? A conferencing facility, there's different ways of teaching people, or for people to learn. So you need to quickly assess the jobs that the people that are coming up, and make sure that you equip them as such. You might need to fill gaps. You might even need to hire people, because the skills are changing. It's a whole different skill set. It's a whole different career scope that we are going into as we change businesses. So I think that is one thing that we need to start looking at. And having a strategic hiring roadmap will help your business to innovate faster than your competitors. So the key aspects that I think we need to consider, as I mentioned, is the business continuity plans that we put in place. What are the policies in place for flexible work arrangements? Allow people to be innovative. Allow businesses want to generate revenue. Employees within those businesses want to maintain their livelihood and have an income. So allow them to have that flexible work environment. Communicate on a regular basis. We have an SMS system that we use, where we communicate with employees who are sitting at home, giving them updates on what is going on in the organization, how we are doing as a business, and check in with your employees. Address the concerns of workplace policies. Policies need to change. You need to adapt to the new way, to what is currently going on in the world, for that matter. And then also, we need to be mindful of what it is that we need to do for our employees, for our business, to ensure that we can continue, because compliance is one thing that is very important. If you are not compliant as a business, it will affect you. I mean, there's many areas where it can affect you in terms of infection and spread of the virus, but it will affect the confidence that your people will have for you as an employer. So it's important for us to keep those 5 aspects in our minds as in ways of doing things. I saw people say evolve means adapting and finding ways of changing and moving on to the new. So as we move on to the new, let's consider what it is that we need to put in place. What things do we need to address we move to the new and actually say we are ready to move on to the next level.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rufilwe. I know technology has also been quite a challenge with the breaking of sound and all of that. I mean, it is the new normal and we're just going to have to breathe through it. And unfortunately, again, due to technology and the challenges we face, we have lost our next speaker, Nwabisa, who is a mindfulness coach. And she was going to obviously enlighten us about this concept of mindfulness for business. And I think you've heard, I mean, throughout okay, I can see she's coming on, and I do pray that the internet is going to hold. But I mean, we are introducing this concept as a tool to assist businesses as they navigate such stressful times. And I can see she's coming on. And Nwabi, if you can hear me at any point, please do share your presentation so that we can get right into it. And I do hope that the internet gods are going to be on our side during your presentation, because this is very, very, very interesting. And I think it's a very important tool that we can all learn from in really helping us all in dealing with stress, with this newness. And the reality is that, you know, when you're moving into anything new, it comes with anxiety. And I saw a comment even from the chat about how working from home is actually quite stressful, you know? So we are really a ball of stress right now, and any mechanisms, any tools that can assist business in mitigating and dealing with stress. Now, without wasting any time, I'm gonna hand over to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the delay. I was struggling with connectivity and I had to remind myself to stay mindful, to be present, and just to calm down. So I had to essentially practice what I'm about to present. I'll just get into the topic. There we go. Okay, there we go. A lot of people might be wondering, what do we mean by mindfulness, and what is mindfulness, and how do you integrate mindfulness into the workplace? And I'm basically going to be touching on 5 points, starting with COVID-19 and the stress and anxiety that it's had on business and employees. And how do we adopt mindfulness for businesses and in the corporate sector? And how does mindfulness help us in the time of COVID-19? And where do you start introducing mindfulness to the workplace? And what are the tips on starting a mindful journey? So a lot of us, for the first time, are dealing with something that we've never witnessed before, a global calamity, a pandemic. Most of us have never lived through a pandemic. So a lot of us are nervous, we are anxious, we don't know what's going to happen next. A lot of us are clouded by fear, the uncertainty. Will my business continue after this? Will there be productivity? Am I going to lose my income? And do I need to change my strategy? Because what you had planned January 2020 and to now, it will be a completely different plan from what you had envisaged your business to look like. And obviously loss of livelihoods, loss of income. And a lot of us who've been entrepreneurs for the longest time, if there is a situation where one would have to close down their companies, there's a lot of anxiety as well on how would one navigate the workplace and where would you start? And obviously, as I think Bongani had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that before COVID-19, the economy was already, there were already issues with economic growth being downgraded. And there was also a lot of nervousness and uncertainty because of the unprecedented change in artificial intelligence, digitization, automation. So already a lot of us had to navigate technological changes and how do we move forward prior to COVID-19. So a lot of us have been navigating anxiety prior, and COVID-19 I think was just the final blow for most of us. And if you speak to a lot of people nowadays, it's always the same comments. I'm so tired, I can't, I'm busy, I'm stressed and overwhelmed, there's no time, what should I do? Because as Sipo indicated, that working from home can be very stressful for many, because other people thrive with, going into the workplace, seeing other people. So there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of confusion as well. So you might be asking then, how does mindfulness come into being? Mindfulness is essentially about being present in the moment and not concentrating on, on the past, because a lot of us, as I said, had strategies and plans that we had, were trying to implement from January, and now the status quo, things have changed. We might not be able to implement them going forward, and we might need to change. So essentially, to define mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. The reality is that we are here now. How do we move forward? How do we use the resources that we have right now to take us to the next level? And I'll just share a quote: whatever the present moment contains, accept it as you had chosen it, always work with it and not against it. So another definition of mindfulness, the ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what is going on around us. Especially in the time of COVID-19, there's a lot of anxiety, stress, nervousness, confusion, uncertainty. So how do we now, understanding what the concept of mindfulness is, how do we now go back into our realities and implement mindfulness? Obviously, there are benefits to mindfulness. Mindfulness has the ability to reduce stress and anxiety because you are operating from a sense of worthiness, a sense of self-compassion, and a sense of presence. It increases emotional intelligence and resilience, especially navigating this pandemic right now and trying to be in the present moment and trying to be grateful of what you have at the present moment and not the lack. Mindfulness improves communication because right now you are operating from a place of calmness. So you are able to listen to the other person objectively. And mindfulness also helps with us improve our focus. And because I've seen with a lot of businesses now, because of the panic, different businesses are trying to get into different industries. I've seen a lot of people have moved into masks, hand sanitizers, and now they are forced to multitask and are not focusing on business as they know it or their core that they were doing before. And it also enhances creativity. It allows us to think of new ways of doing things. And as I spoke about the benefits, in addition to reducing stress, it's also a leadership paradigm because leaders that are known to be mindful are known to be more present and more compassionate. And mindfulness is not a new concept. Several companies have used it over the years. Nike, Google is known to be at the forefront of mindfulness. I think they've got the Search Inside Yourself program. You've got Apple. Steve Jobs was known to have gone to the East to study mindfulness, and the Apple design is credited, and the design and the sleekness of Apple is credited to his creativity being based on the fact that he was able to tap into mindfulness as and when required. And how can companies benefit from mindfulness? Mindfulness might sound weird in the corporate and business context, but leaders need to be mentally present all day to take conscious decisions on how to act. So a lot of us are involved in decision making at almost every point in our daily engagements, and we don't realize that we are, to an extent, have started practicing mindfulness because we need to tune in, calm down when adopting or coming up with certain decisions. Mindfulness is known to improve corporate well-being and company culture. And employees learn how to manage big levels of stress better. And companies that observe mindfulness are known to have decreasing levels of sicknesses and more increased productivity. And mindfulness can also help attract and retain top talent. If you look at Google, most people would do anything to work at Google. And there's different ways where you can, the question now is, then how do I introduce mindfulness in the workplace? So there's different methods. So I'll look at 5 different perspectives, starting from the leadership perspective. And then we've got the emotional perspective. Then we've got the physical perspective, then the spiritual perspective, and then the mental perspective on, because it sounds like such a foreign concept. And a lot of people might think that you would need to have prior experience to do that, but that's not the case. But from a leadership perspective, one can start introducing mindfulness as the leader themselves. As in practice what you preach, be the role model, start with yourself. And once you've started adopting mindfulness as a management tool, as a leader, and you have a better understanding on what mindfulness is, then you can start a conversation about mindfulness with your team, with your employees, and just to start sharing the benefits of mindfulness, get their opinion on what they think. And then in addition to starting a conversation, you can, start speaking about clarify the goals for using mindfulness. Why are you promoting this technique, and what do you want to achieve, and they need to understand that it's beyond the company, but it's also about the, individual selves and what would be the benefits. And once the conversation has started going, then you can then start teaching people about mindfulness and the practice thereof. And obviously you'll start leading by example, and you need to start leading with, with an emotional connection, because right now everybody's scared, from your clients to your suppliers, to your employees, to landlords. We are all nervous because landlords don't know if they'll have tenants. Clients don't know if they'll have revenue to source different things. You as a business owner, you don't know if you will still survive. So we need to be very empathetic right now, and you start leading from a place of emotional connectivity and trying to be more empathetic as well with your employees, as much as there might be retrenchments, but still keep that leadership of, how can I help you beyond this, relationship in this workplace? Can I give you referral letters? Can I help you in terms of sourcing other opportunities? And it's also important to incorporate mindfulness into meetings as well. Before meetings, where you are able to pause and ask yourself, what is the goal for this meeting? What do you want to achieve in this meeting? And going forward, and when things get back to normal and we're going to be engaging in more meetings, it's very important to allow time gaps between meetings. Once you've done something, before jumping to another meeting, just a moment, even a minute of stillness, and say, oh, okay, quick reflection, and then go into another meeting. And as a leader as well, in introducing mindfulness, it's very important not to micromanage, because if we are saying that we're a mindful corporation, then we need to understand that that people need to be more self-reliant, because now you can't say you had an hour to work on that task. Maybe you can say now, okay, there's 50 minutes for the task, and for every 10 minutes, maybe a minute to pause. And as a leader as well, to introduce mindfulness, you should be in a position to schedule time for yourself as well, to practice and to lead by example. From a physical point of view, how do we start integrating mindfulness from a physical point of view? You could start, as I said, introducing how to breathe, how to breathe for purpose, to call it that, and encourage employees to take mindful walks. Let's say somebody is a bit nervous, they have to embark on a certain task that's daunting, or they're a bit nervous, then they can go for a walk. So a mindful walk, even if it's a 10-minute walk, you can start introducing concepts such as, meditation, breathing to be in the present moment. And you can start looking at things like yoga or fitness classes at a very basic level, maybe once a week as a team, spend an hour on fitness. Things like starting to introduce healthy snacks and drinks as part of supporting this culture, and also the ability to have silent breaks and lunches. And also adding on to that, things like team or leadership retreats where you go back and tune in as a team. From a mental perspective, it's very important to educate our team members about the importance of mental wellness, because, as I said, a lot of people are nervous across, all over, from employees to clients to suppliers to landlords. So especially your employees and your teams, because people are nervous about their livelihoods. So this gives you an opportunity to start introducing and start having conversations on mental wellness, the importance of mental wellness, and start clarifying the purpose of mindfulness. And you start minimizing priorities, to start educating the team on how to, in a day, maybe commit to certain priorities. And I think SIPO did it when we started, the importance of, when getting into the office environment, setting intentions at the start of the day as a team. This is my personal intention, and this is the organizational intention. And, you start what I call one thing morning circles, where you ask your team members, in addition to the outputs that they have for the company, what do they want to achieve in their personal capacity as well. And also it's very important to start introducing things like reflections, debriefs, maybe also once a week, where we start reflecting on the new normal, because we need to come up with new strategies for our businesses. And unfortunately, once you embark on a new path, failure is one of the constructs that we're going to have to navigate. So you need to start speaking to your employees, your team, and saying, okay, from these new strategies, how do we debrief? How do we reflect on that? And from a failure perspective, not encouraging failure, but also making people understand that failure is part of business process, and it means that we are trying something new. And it's very, very important to start creating a gratitude wall within the workplace, because now a lot of us feel like we have lost everything, or we are losing everything, and there's really nothing to be grateful about. But if we start, things like, I'm healthy as part of the gratitude wall. I have a job. There might be a lot of salary cuts. In the event that there's salary cuts, people can start being grateful for things like, okay, I have a salary cut, but I still have a job, healthy, I still have a roof over my head. So it's very important to start integrating that in promoting mindfulness during COVID-19 and beyond. From a spiritual aspect, there's, a lot of connotations around mindfulness. You hear people saying it's not part of my religion. So mindfulness is really not a religious practice, but a practice that, it's about connecting with yourself. It's a lifestyle. And some people who have, are part of different religions have set it to the fact that, for example, in the event of prayer, somebody who does meditation or mindfulness have said in the past that has intensified their religious activity because they are more present in what they are doing. So it's very important that when we introduce mindfulness in the workplace, to not force people to be mindful, because other people might see it as a distraction. So people need to be really comfortable in adopting this. And one of the most important things is that because now as companies we are losing our profits, it's very important to go back to the why we started. When we start businesses, we usually start with the mission statement to say, this is why I started the business. So during this time, we need to go back to that for guidance, because there might not be sufficient money in the foreseeable future, but we need to go back to the beginning and remember our core values and why we started this journey. Just to give an example, an entrepreneur that I spoke to 2 weeks ago had to cut down salaries, but he said his team members encouraged him, and they were like, thank you. Some of us are not going to resign because we believe in the how and the why of this company. We are mindful and we understand the long-term vision. And yes, things are difficult right now, but we foresee the future of this business because they were guided by the company values and they had internalized the company's vision and mission. So a lot of us will have to go back and tap in and remember, why did we start with this? So you can start introducing mindfulness, encouraging people on breathing techniques, understanding, listening to their breath, feeling their breath. And you can also start introducing meditation for the ones that are, the ones that are comfortable with meditation. And after the presentation, we will share techniques to introduce breathing exercises, and we also share techniques on meditation. And also, again, you're able to consider yoga as a form of introducing and encouraging mindfulness in the workplace. But also in conducting exercises on mindfulness and having conversations about company values, it's very important now more than ever to also concentrate on your team members, to say, besides you being SIPO, an employee at company X, SIPO is an individual, SIPO is a person with their own needs and ambitions. And I think this is a critical time to start trying to understand what it is that your employees want and what do they want for themselves outside of being part of this company. And also find out, how do you now support? Because another entrepreneur discovered that one of the employees was very passionate about community development, and he then realigned the company and developed a corporate social investment wing, with this employee now heading it as part of a passion project within the workplace. And that also helps build loyalty, because now your team members can see that it's not only about the profit and the bottom line, but you also care about their well-being. And also going back to the importance of the why and being mindful of that, and continuously encouraging and repeating the importance of why the company was started, what are the company values, and also understanding what it is that the team members want for themselves. And from an emotional perspective, it's very critical for us now as leaders to practice active listening, where now you are listening actively, and you're listening to hear somebody. You are listening with a purpose, because a lot of people are nervous now. A lot of people will have to speak to their to their bosses, to their leaders. So it's very important as a leader now to listen from a sense of purpose and how do I help you? Yes, you are nervous. For example, I was giving an example about a single mother. She's trying to work from home. She's got a 3-month-old baby, and it's almost impossible for her to work. So as a leader, how do you now start practicing active listening, where you are not, you are not listening with judgment, with, oh my gosh, I'm not going to listen to this because it affects my productivity levels, but listening with compassion and rather asking the question, how do I support you as a leader? And also it's very important where employees are showing improvement to recognize that and support that. And it will also be very important to train staff members on conducting meaningful check-ins with each other, even if we are working remotely. But things like WhatsApp messages, are you coping today? How was your work? How was your work day? How's your environment working from home? So compassion and empathy are very, very important at this point in time. And it's also very important to be able to foster a transparent culture and encourage ongoing feedback. And also mindfulness is about the present, and being completely engrossed in looking at the now. Obviously the future is important. We still need to plan for the future and need to learn from the mistakes of the past, but we can do that without spending too much time on what the future looks like or spending too much time on what the past looks like. So yes, thank you so much. That was my wrap up on mindfulness and the importance thereof, and just mainly tips on how to start integrating that in our everyday lives and in the workplace.
And thank you very much, Nwabisa, for that enlightening presentation, and really introducing us to the concept of mindfulness, and how it can actually help business during this time. And I mean, as we approach the end of our webinar and of our masterclass, really today's one was an introduction to a series of masterclasses with an aim of introducing businesses to obviously mindfulness for business innovation and wellness. And Nwabisa has highlighted the benefits, and I'd just like to harp on some of these benefits. I mean, around fostering an open-mindedness and clarity, which is definitely something that is needed right now as we're navigating this new normal, and obviously we cannot be entering a whole new normal with old mindsets. So mindfulness is a tool to really help us let go of any form of resistance and really approach things from the current moment so that we are able to find the best ways of moving forward. And then also, I mean, mindfulness also helps leaders and teams to adapt quickly. And that's exactly what we need right now. All of this has happened like in a short space of time. And as we are working from home, time is also just rushing by, and we need to act quickly. So a practice of mindfulness does help with agility and helping teams to learn faster. I mean, there's a whole new concept now of micro-learning. And that's exactly what we need to be able to adapt to this new normal. And then obviously mindfulness also drives performance, productivity. And I think that's obviously something that's going to be very needed as we try to catch up. I mean, businesses have lost 2 months of business, and we're going to be losing much more time. And how do we catch up? And then it also encourages collaboration. A lot of businesses or departments always complain about people working in silo. And I think at this point in time where we need to safeguard our livelihoods and our lives, we can't afford to be working in silo. And I think it's very important wherever possible where we can introduce a culture of collaboration, and mindfulness is here to assist us with that. And I mean, there's endless benefits, but I think one of the other ones which touches on the HR perspective, it also helps attract talent and retain talent. And I think at this point in time, any form of stability would be very important to the business. So what we are is actually introducing a whole program, a series of master classes, which will be starting from the 4th of June and will complete on the 23rd of July. We will avail all of this information to all of you. We've got all your contact details, and we've seen requests for presentations. We'll also avail this to all of you. And I would like to also take this time to really appreciate your presence here with us. And I think it is also quite important for us to just really wrap up this session on a mindful note. I mean, this has been a lot of information, you know, in a short space of time. And this is also one of the things that does contribute to stress and anxiety, too much information. And how do we process that information? And my advice would be, you know what, just take it one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time, and just breathe. You know, just really breathe. And I'm just going to open up to the panel members. If you want to end off with any note, please, let's do so. But from my side, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Sipakazi, may I say something? I'd like to share a story, my own story, because I'd like to encourage people to share theirs, their trials and tribulations and positive results. So basically, I closed my business on the 25th of March, sent all my employees home, heartbroken and frozen in fear. And I sat that day and I thought, I don't know what to do, but I know one thing I can do, and that is offer online free classes to people out there. So I got a hold of all my teachers, and within 24 hours, we were offering 6 or 7 online classes free of charge to the public, including yoga, meditation, dancing, which people have loved, and all sorts of things. So we literally went online within 24 hours, free of charge, giving back to society. We are still doing this, by the way. If anyone is keen, we are offering it. But apart from that, it grew into a business because all our members asked if we could start a business running online classes. And within 2 weeks, we actually started an online business parallel to our free classes. And we now have about 250 members on our online business, which is awesome. So out of giving back to society, we are now receiving and still giving, but community right now is so important. So I think we need to start thinking about what we can give as well as receive to help grow each other's businesses. Thank you.
To myself. Thank you very much, Trish, for that. And Refilo, any last closing words? Nwabisa Bongani?
Hi, Sipo. Let me go for it. Thank you very much. It's been informative. I've learned from every contribution that was made by the panelists and Trish and Sasha with that opening, powerful activist opening that you did there. What I take from this is that there is hope and people shouldn't despair. I think right now, being day 56, I think we're sort of much better prepared than we were when this whole thing started. I think we are now mindful, can I use the term, of the situation that we are in, and therefore we've had time to reflect and innovate. For businesses out there, there was a question about small businesses, whether can they benefit from TERS, informal businesses rather, and the answer is they can't benefit from TERS, but they can approach the Department of Small Business Development and they can get aid there. So let's continue. Life will continue. There's been other pandemics out there and catastrophes. It's the human spirit and endurance that has seen us as a human race persisting in all difficult times. So this is just calling us to step up a notch in terms of our innovation and creativity. God bless and Godspeed. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. On my side, I just think, as Bongani has said, I've learned quite a lot. It was quite an informative session that we had, and I'm glad that we all shared similar views regarding the pandemic and what we're going through. But it was quite insightful to actually know how to open up our minds, what we need to be aware of, what we need to be mindful of, and how we can actually manage the circumstances that we're in, how we can proactively participate in ensuring that as a business and the people that we support, that we can holistically work together. And it's all about togetherness. It's all about getting together. And as a country, we've seen how we all kind of had to put our heads together, our hands together, and just make it work for ourselves. And we're getting there. We'll get there. It's trial and error. There's a lot to learn. Every day there's something new, and the challenges are coming up on a daily basis, and the answers are not always there. There's not always something, a plan B for plan A. So we are kind of walking the journey as we go along, and there's new things to learn every single day. I mean, from the past 2 weeks, I've learned so much in this 2 weeks that I know more than what I knew before. And I knew a lot, but even today I've learned even more. So every day is a learning process, and we need to open up our minds to learn on a daily basis. And I think this whole program will actually assist us as a whole. I mean, even if you're not a panelist, we can participate later on as participants to actually get to learn more as and when we continue with the program. So thank you very much, Tris and Sipukazi people. Thank you for the opportunity. It was actually very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. No, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody. I've also learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to the future and our new normal, and how we pivot our businesses and how we integrate all the learning. And as Sipo said, micro learning, unfortunately, the future. So we need to try and learn as quickly as we can, and so that we can make the necessary changes. But I think this is a wonderful platform with different expertise and coming together and seeing how do we help each other collectively move into the future and adopting new strategies for our new normal. Thank you so much.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much. Please do keep a lookout on your mailboxes. We'll be sending you the presentations, all the information that we shared in this masterclass, and also just look out on information for our future masterclasses. And I wish you a beautiful day, and please, let's just stay mindful. That's all we really need to do, is just to stay present and mindful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, panelists. It was very exciting navigating this new normal. And we didn't have to fly anywhere to actually do that. But anyway, thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm going to say one last thing. Sasha told me the other day about the new buzzword, which is African. So let's, as South Africans do it, we can do it. And let's not absolutely survive. Let's all try and thrive together.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you very much. All righty then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Sash, are you there?